Now.
Okay, we just want to welcome back to the Veterans in Politics interview. Our next is Justice of the Peace, Las Vegas Township, Department 15. We've invited all the candidates, and evidently just one showed up, and that would be Mr. Robert Kurth. We want to welcome you here to Veterans in Politics interviews. I'm your moderator, Kevin L. Child. And our panel, would you please repeat your names over so people can get to know you? But before we do that, I want to thank our sponsors, Ron Q for County Treasurer, Real Water, and Lakeside Business Suites. So with that, panel, would you please start, Mr. Foust?
My name is Robert Foust. I've lived in Las Vegas since 1985. I'm a former professional baseball player, baseball coach, and I am a U.S. Army combat veteran from Vietnam.
Andre Haynes from EMG, and also the Southern Nevada Auxiliary Director of Trustee.
I scared you got my name.
I forgot my name. I'm Mantis, co-host of the Veterans in Politics radio show, and I've lived in Vegas since 2004, and I am alone.
My name is Rob Lauer. I'm a U.S. Army military police veteran. I'm also a reporter, and just for fairness, I will not be voting today, just asking questions.
And my name is Michael McDonald, former City of Las Vegas Vice President of the Family Civil Liberties Union. And I will be also asking good questions.
John Moore, former Nevada Assemblyman, U.S. Army veteran. Thanks for being here.
Okay, and our candidate, I'll give you an opening statement, and you have a minute.
A minute for opening statement? Well, I'm happy to, let's see, is it on?
Yes.
Okay, I'm happy to be here today, and I'm happy to be present for this interview. I'm thankful for your service that you've done, for your family members' service, and I'm thankful for the work that the organization does to inform the community and try to educate them about who to vote for and what's going on in the community. I'm happy to answer any of your questions, and we'll give you a little bit more of my background when I have that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kurth. So what we do is we're going to ask you a couple of questions. We're going to have the panelists, and then you'll get a chance to answer them. And panelists, remember to repeat your name before your question. So again, we'll start with the left-hand side, Assemblyman, former Assemblyman, please.
Thank you. John Moore, former Nevada Assemblyman. Mr. Kurth, if you are presiding on the bench, do your religious views have any determination on how you arrive at decisions relating cases that may potentially be in front of you?
No, I mean, of course not. I mean, I do have to say that I went to a conference, a family law conference. I usually try to go to that, and I didn't make it this year, but I went last year, and a gentleman spoke to everyone there, and he talked about bias, and your biases in the judicial system, and he said what he thinks is important, which makes more sense to me, because everybody says, oh, I'm not biased, but we all grow up in certain ways. We all have different things that have influenced us. We've all grown up in different types of families, maybe different religions or no religion or at all. And he said what's important is to recognize what bias that you might have so that you don't exercise that in a judicial function. So, I thought about that, and I was like, wow, I never really thought about it that way, because that's really being honest and open, that of course, you see certain things, but in my 26 years of practicing law, I've handled so many different cases and represented so many different people, and sometimes, I think that the way they're represented and the initial perception even by the judicial system, and I could give you many examples over the years with different judges, affects, that judge's view of that person when they're there. But I know that's not always as it is, so you have a good day, you have a bad day. Sometimes in your response, sometimes, somebody might have something in their eye. I've had a judge get mad at a client because they were squinting at them one time or something, but that might be getting a little bit away from the religious beliefs, but I definitely have a good religious Christian background, but no, that's not going to have any type of effect of creating any type of bias or prejudice or giving somebody some type of favor or anything like that. I would never do that.
Thank you.
Michael McDonald, Mr. Kurth, I would like to ask you, what is your opinion on bail amounts and the reform for bail and keeping people out of jail, and for the vetting of protective orders? What merits do you usually, would you go in approving those or denying those? And would you look at both parties and both sides, as it's also being used as a silver bullet in custody matters to bolster their claim for primary?
Thank you for that question. I have, in my practice, I've practiced in the criminal courts, practiced in the justice courts, practiced in the family courts, practiced in the district courts, the Supreme Court, and other states. And I've seen like a protective order be used as a sword and as a shield. I mean, it's very important. It's unbelievable a little bit how many protective orders we have now and how much domestic violence there is, and how some of it's gotten out of control. And sometimes the protective orders are out of control. You have to look at it carefully, and I think my experience as being involved in family court, for instance, and I've handled representing people with protective orders even in justice court that are against other people involved that would affect the family court situation. And I think you have to look at it very carefully and understand everything that's going on, when you're looking at the application. And ultimately, you look at the application, they have to provide the evidence and determine it. Sometimes they're granted, you see it so egregious that it's granted initially and you set a hearing. Sometimes you determine to set a hearing first before you grant it or consider it. What was the other part of the question?
The other part was the excessive bail amounts and to either taking plea deals or staying in jail. A lot of indigent litigants are being forced to stay in jail up to 21 days to wait trial as they can't afford bail amounts. The bill was originally implemented as a way to get a body back into court, and it's being used to fill up our prison system. So what in your opinion, what would you do for the bail amounts and keeping people in or out of jail?
Okay, thank you for refreshing my mind on that, on the bail question. I want to say one more thing on the TPO question. I've been involved in a lot of courts. I was recently involved with one with Judge Sanson, and I like how he handles things. And he talked, and we went over the information, and he said this isn't going to be like family court. You're going to have to provide some real evidence here. I mean, I'm not saying anything negative about family court. I mean, do a lot of practice there, but Judge Sanson, that's what he is. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that. Either way, so. Because both attorneys there, myself and another one, practiced a lot of family court. And he came down to working out some type of a mutual behavior order. That way at least, too, it gave them a no contact situation where they didn't have to, have the, what goes along with getting a protective order, losing your Second Amendment rights and so on and so forth, and having that affect you in the family court case without knowing exactly everything that's involved. So I've been involved in those things. As far as bail goes, they've tried to do something with the bail. I mean, I think of an egregious case that I had where, people, are alleged to commit crimes, and when I'm involved, I'm representing them, as a criminal defense lawyer. And this woman didn't speak the English language, or hardly. She was Hispanic, and she had a problem with her application on her. And she had a workers' compensation case. She had a problem with an application on welfare application. And whatever was told to her, so all of a sudden she got charged with several counts of a welfare fraud for taking this and not reporting that she had a workers' compensation case that was existing that she might receive benefits from. And her bail was like $100,000. It was crazy. I went into justice court, and thank goodness we had, or somebody else was sitting in there, and I talked to him, I said, look, what are you gonna do here? I mean, you wanna put this gal in jail? There's no way she's ever gonna make this bail. I mean, if you reduce it to $5,000, she might not make it. It's not a violent crime, it's not hurting anybody. Plus, she has several children, and if we put her in custody and we keep her there, all these children are gonna get farmed out to CPS, Division of Child and Family Services, and find foster care and cause more money to our economy and the community, and it was crazy. So, I got him to reduce it down to like $1,000. Somewhere around there. It was very low. So she was able to just, get released and take care of her family and then defend herself. And, ultimately that was, came to a good resolution. But that's just one way that it's out of control. Bail is there to make sure the defendant comes back and they show up for court. They don't abscond, they have something hanging over their head, But it shouldn't be excessive. It needs to be related to the crime and to the individual and what they're doing. And the Clark County Detention Center is pretty full. I mean, I know officers that I know, if they have somebody and they can take them to the, Las Vegas Detention Center, they'll take them. But if it's served minimal, they won't take them to the Clark County Detention Center, even if they should, sometimes, or maybe somebody wouldn't want them to be there. But on the lower offenses, they don't need to be there because they're just too full. So we need to make sure we're housing the people that aren't showing up for court and that are accused of violent crimes.
So you err on the side of OR than over excessive bail amounts then, or and being a bad thing to people? Because a lot of people get thrown in jail, they lose their jobs, they get access to their children, it's devastating on those effects. So what would you do if it went?
I don't think there's as many ORs. I mean, when I first started practicing in 1992, you could call up a judge and you can get an OR on a lot of cases. Okay? And you just can't do that anymore, especially with, the way the world is now, especially on like a DUI and a battery domestic violence case. Just not going to happen. They're going to have to probably post some type of bail, but it should be something that's reasonable so that they can post it and they're not just held up in jail and missing their work, missing their job, because what good does that do when they lose their job? Now they can't pay their fines, and it just goes on and so forth, and they get caught in this whirlpool. But I can't say that I'd err on an OR over excessive bail. I wouldn't do excessive bail. I would make the bail reasonable for the person and the crime that they're charged with. In the circumstances, I would consider the ORs, and I think one good program we have is on some is intensive supervision, where they have to come in and they have to check in and they put their handprint on, and so they know they're there. So if you're going to give somebody that, at least if you're concerned about them, they're checking in all the time. But even if you put somebody on house arrest, I don't recall the cost right now, but it's like maybe $20 to $30 a day to be on house arrest that people don't realize once you get fitted and everything. But definitely in favor of a reasonable bail.
Who does it cost?
Pardon me?
Who does house arrest cost? You or the court?
Well, the person that's on house arrest.
It cost them $20 or $30 a day.
Yeah, I think it's closer to $30 a day. I'm not, I don't know the exact figures, but yeah.
So currently, Ron Lauer, U.S. Army journalist, currently in the news, obviously, the president's considering lowering the age of firearms purchases, rifles particularly, to 18. As a soldier, I live with thousands of 18, 19-year-olds who serve with honor. 18-year-olds are adults under the law. They can own homes, they can have abortions, they can have families, they can go to prison. Are they going to be second-class citizens? And in your opinion, is it constitutional to limit their right to own a firearm?
Well, as a judge, we have three branches of government, obviously, right? And the judge interprets the law. So we would interpret the law and determine when we see that particular statute how it affects it, whether it's constitutional or not. We already have certain laws that are in place. I'm definitely pro Second Amendment. I mean, I have a CCW myself. And, rifles, I think they're looking specifically at, which I think there's some confusion there when we're looking at an AR with, you could take a breakaway 22, and, that has a clip that you could shoot, 20, however many, and you only cock it back one time. But I know when I started hunting, and I can't remember what the age is, because the age in Utah is one, the age here is one, it's either 12 or 14. But I started hunting with my dad then, and I could, own a rifle or a shotgun, or I think what they're more looking at limiting is these, what they're going to call an assault weapon, if they can actually define that, but not limit every type of rifle or shotgun. I have my personal views on that. As a judge, I would just have to look at that statute and determine how it's written and compare it with the different scrutiny tests and determine if it's constitutional.
Isn't that a second-class citizen, making someone who's an adult, a voting citizen, and they can't exercise all constitutional rights? If we applied that to other categories, it would be considered racist. It would be considered all kinds of names.
We have the Second Amendment right. I don't know if it specifically says at what age. I mean, we consider 18 to be an adult. I mean, in some states, they used to allow drinking at 18 or maybe even before that. And some are still at 21, so we determine those things. And those are, you know, under the state law, and that they're constitutional and they're held up. I know it's difficult because I was married actually when I was 18 years old. So I mean, I was out of 1 year out of college, and I got married. I'm still married. I've been married 32 years this year to my wife and my 4 children. And I remember going like on I don't know, I wasn't 21 yet, and we couldn't rent a car. You know, we were somewhere on, you know, but you're talking about Second Amendment rights, and you're talking about, you know, as soon as you're 18, you can vote. Yeah, I think that we should be able to have that, and we should be able to own a rifle, own a shotgun at that age, and we should be able to hunt and use it. If they pass a specific law that says something different regarding a specific type of weapon, then I would have to consider that. I don't know that it would apply to every weapon, but I definitely think we should have our right to bear arms, and we shouldn't infringe upon the Second Amendment.
So, next panels, please.
Okay, when a domestic
State your
violence,
name, please.
Miss Toboggan. When a domestic violence offender is released on bail, what measures would you support to keep the victims safe? And on a larger scale, do you support Marcy's Law?
You're gonna have to give me a little bit about Marcy's Law, refresh my recollection on that.
Okay, Marcy's Law is a victims' rights law that if an offender is released on bail, or not on bail, I'm sorry, if a domestic violence offender or any violent offender actually is up for a bail, or not a bail hearing, for release, if they're up for release or if they are being released, their victims or their victims' families, say if they murdered somebody, they would have to be informed that that person is up for release or has been released.
Yes, most definitely. You know, it's domestic violence is
Well, that's not just for domestic violence, it's for any
Right.
violent crime.
right, but referring to yes, I'm 100% in favor of that.
Okay.
Marcy's Law, and enforcing that, and I think there needs to be more. They need to be able to disseminate that fast and let everybody know what's going on in the system, and to keep them protected. You know, what's difficult about domestic violence is there's just so much. Our officers spend so much time dealing with it. And it's even become, it might be the most dangerous situation even for an officer on a daily basis now, because you don't know how people are going to react because of their passions and, you know, what's going on with them. And you don't know what situation they're in when you're coming to the door. I know that my son is an officer, and you know, so those things are concerning, especially when you see all, you know, people killing their spouse or ex or whatever, or them and their boyfriend, or even we had the, you know, woman recently in the news doing that. It's very disheartening to think that our society has deteriorated so much that there's just like no respect for the law. You know, I tell my clients in the past, I've told them, I said, look, you can get a protective order, you should get a protective order. Don't be afraid to get a protective order, because if you get one, now if they're around, you see them, they're violating, you call the police, now they're gonna be charged with a crime. Okay, now they can get picked up. But I said, you can't hold that protective order up in front of you, and it's not bulletproof. You know, you can't just think, you gotta watch what you do, you gotta make sure everything's safe around you, and have those people around you that help you, and to be aware of it. And, I mean, how to solve that problem is I don't know, it's extremely difficult, because you have to balance the rights of the person that's accused, that's charged. And when you get a protective order, you know, you only have to have, when those are issued, it's to the satisfaction of the judge, to the satisfaction of the court. It's like a probable cause. If it's even that standard, I mean, it's such a low standard to initially issue one, which is good and bad. right? It's a sword and a shield, so it's good because it's gonna protect that person, and then they can get rid of it, but then it's bad because if it's not true and it goes against that person, then it really affects them in their life and could affect them in their custody cases, could affect them with their Second Amendment rights and things like that. And you can't just, it's not easy to just get rid of those and just like, even when they're gone, to like seal them and expunge them. It's not an easy process. So you have to balance everyone's rights. Of course we have to do it, and that's why we have so many, because we have to err on the side of caution.
Okay, with time, go ahead, our next panelist, thank you so much.
Andre Haynes, do you think that defendants who are currently facing fines and sentences for past marijuana offenses in Nevada should be forgiven now that marijuana is legal?
I don't think that that you could do that. I mean, at the time, I mean, constitutionally, you know, it's a different, you know, what's legal, what did they do at the time? I mean, even now, okay, so what's legal? You can possess, you can use marijuana, where can you possess or use it at? I don't think it's, you know, I was coming out of getting something for one of my daughters the other day, and I'm walking through the parking lot, and I'm like, oh, wait, there's skunks here? You know? I don't know, I was just thinking, because I remember, you know, driving up, you know, and you're out in the woods and you ran over a skunk. I went, oh wait, somebody's smoking marijuana out here? I mean, you just can't get away from it. It's infringing. There's still laws concerning it. There's still laws about where you can use it, where you can't use it. And even though it's legal, there's still laws that have to be followed. You know, the people that, I think they should maybe look at somebody serving a long time or a long sentence, not usually for those old marijuana charges. You know, the legislature did do something this last session where they reduced time limits on being able to seal records for a lot of cases, and they substantially reduced them, which is a huge benefit to, say, people in those situations, if they would come and take advantage of that. But I don't think that the law would allow us to go back and look at every case and everything and change that.
Next panelist.
Robert Foust. On bail, do you think that the court should be involved in granting bail, actually taking the money and doing the bail and putting the bail bondsmen out of business?
Well, I mean, the bail is submitted, I guess I don't specifically understand, but when somebody bails.
Let me say this. Bail is 15% in this state. The state of Nevada, it's 10%. They will bail you for 10%. So they undercut the bail bonds, and they're basically gonna drive them out of business. Do you think that's fair or right?
Well, I'm not aware of that. I'm aware that bail was 10% for a long time, for
It's
many.
15 now.
I know it's 15 now, but for many, many years. And I don't think that it should have been raised to 15, because that substantially made it much more difficult for people to be able to come up with that bail amount. And there's a lot of bail bonds companies out there, though, that aren't necessarily, I haven't specifically looked at the law to see if, you know, what they're doing, but they're not taking the full bail. They're letting, you know, people make payments, because otherwise the people they can't bail out.
Making payments and not taking full bail is two different things.
Well, they bail them out. The bail bond company is on the hook, okay? They provide it to the court, and you know, they sign their bond, and usually they're bonded with another insurance company. And if they don't, if the person absconds or doesn't come back, then they have hearings before the court, and they have the opportunity to be represented by an attorney when that bail is going to be.
But should the court itself be taking on the responsibility of granting bail for 10%? That's what I'm asking. That's the question.
I see. So you could post 10% to the court rather than post 15% to a bail bonds.
Company. Do you think that's right?
I don't.
Because if they abscond when they're out on a 10% bond to the court, who's going to go look for them?
Well, yeah, I don't know that. The court.
Well, this is something that's going on right now in the courts.
Well, usually you can post a cash bail, or you can post a cash bail with the court, or you
can't
post
post
a bond.
$50,000 cash.
No. I think that would probably have some concerns with the law concerning the government and the business, you know, and like maybe even an equal protection type of.
Let's move on. How about this one?
We have to get in time, you have one question, I really appreciate that, Mr. Foust. So you have 3 minutes, Mr. Kurth, to give up a summary and tell the voters why they should vote for you.
Okay, 3 minutes. So I didn't give some of my background in the beginning because it was 1 minute. Let me give you just a little quick background. So I've been raised here in the Las Vegas Valley. I went to elementary school, junior high, high school. I left, I went to college at BYU, met my wife, I came back here, and I graduated from UNLV in 1989 with a degree in business management. I left and I went to law school in Denver, so I went to the University of Denver College of Law, and I graduated there in December of 1991. And I came back because my family is all here in Nevada. My wife is from Nevada, from northern Nevada, and we wanted to raise our family here. I grew up in the construction industry, steel engineers. I worked full-time during college, had a child, had another child right after I graduated from UNLV, so I had 2 kids during law school, worked through it, and I've been in my own practice. I've been licensed here since 1992 and in my own practice since 1996. And I manage my own practice, the people around me, and I would be able to do that and handle that and manage those things and those obligations in the court system with those who work, how to work well with the marshals. And I understand what's going on the prosecution side, and I understand what's going on in the defense side. And I understand what's going on with the people that are appearing before the court and how they don't understand things, and how we need to also make sure they understand what's going on, because so many just go in and they plead guilty. Some of it's a process because I got to get out of here, I got to get back to my job, but do they understand what's going on? Do we have any veterans there that have issues? Do we have, we have a mental health problem, and most crimes are probably more so drug related, okay? It affects it in, stealing and theft and everything. I think it's important to have somebody in the judicial system that has experienced that has been there and has seen what happens, to people and how difficult it is. Sometimes you have to fine them, they need to pay it, we have to run everything, but sometimes it's just excessive. Or certain courts, you get a warrant, you could get pulled over and get 3 tickets at one time, and you miss your payment, and now you get a warrant fee on each of the 3 tickets. There's something we need to do about these people cannot get out of that system. They're just stuck forever, like making a car payment the rest of their life. But they also need to, if they do something wrong, the punishment needs to fit the crime and the person. And I think that I'm somebody that would do that. I know that I am, and that I would have integrity, I would listen, I would be courteous to you, I would respect your rights, I would protect the Constitution and enforce the Constitution, and have integrity. And I appreciate your time today and your questions, and thank you for your support.
Thank you. Veterans in Politics want to thank you for being here. Again, we did invite other candidates. They did not show up, just for clarification. This was for the Justice of the Peace, Las Vegas Township, Department 15. Mr. Robert Kurth, thank you for being here. And for our listeners out there and watchers out here, thank you so much. And remember our sponsors, Ron Kiefer, Clark County Treasurer, Real Water, Lakeside Business Suites. And again, thank you for being here.